Express. We continue evaluating the crisis in Ethiopia and the far-reaching effects to the region and neighboring countries as well. Kasim Tandaza, I know you've been holding to your thought, but as you give us your take on the Ethiopian crisis, let me just read something the Ambassador Jeffrey Feltman, the U.S. Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa, said. In Tigray region specifically, 90% of the population requires aid, and up to 900,000 people are facing famine-like conditions. This is happening in a country that has the expertise and experience to address famine if the will were there. So it seems starvation might be used as an instrument of war, because we've had humanitarian aid has been blocked out in some regions, including Tigray. How do you evaluate all this, especially from a political lens, Kasim?
Well, I think this is something that even us as Kenyans should be worried about in terms of the way we govern. Remember, Ethiopia, as we've just said, is a federal state, more or less like what we have now in Kenya. Okay, Kenya is not a federal state, but with the counties being somehow semi-autonomous, we are more or less looking at it in that light. Remember, even the counties the way they were initially carved out was like putting one ethnic group in one county, apart from cost, of course, but largely all the other counties are based on some form of ethnicity. So the first lesson that I would really draw from the European scenario is the way a country should be governed in light of the different ethnic groups that are in that country. It is so important, and it doesn't need re-emphasizing, that governance should be based on policies and opportunities for all, not discrimination. Because you find that in Tigray, they would have been favored at one point in time, and another regime comes in, and they feel now they are not being treated equally. That is what is happening in Ethiopia, and it can happen in any other country. God forbid it should not happen in Kenya. But you've seen what is happening even in Nigeria, the most countries. They never had peace themselves. Abe could have been a military man by the current president of Nigeria, Buhari, general. And he came in saying that he'll crush the Boko Haram and whatever. 10 years down the line, it is still there. So for me, the first lesson that we can draw politically is the way those in power, those entrusted by the people, should govern those people. They should govern them without any discrimination, because I believe that is where the first discontent grows from. But the next point again is how did they reach where they are now in terms of war?
Okay.
It is a mistake for any country to imagine that you can have a military solution. It has not happened anywhere in the world. I'm not a historian, but from what I've gathered as a leader, all areas where war was counted to be a solution, it ended up creating more problems. So this is another lesson for any leader, that a war, even within the country, will never be a solution. And the best way to stop war is not to start it in the first place. And for there not to be war, then the leaders should be able to embrace the whole nation and even their neighbors. It's going to be a catastrophe, as the professor said, if that war continues, to the extent that now it's going to have a spillover into the neighboring countries. Kenya sharing a whole 800 kilometers border with Ethiopia. You can imagine what can happen. We're already strained here. We cannot afford basically to take care of our own livelihood as Kenyans. So any other added burden, I know the AU will come in, but you mentioned the AU can literally do anything. Why? They cannot support themselves. They are basically supported by the superpowers. And for as long as you're not in charge of your budget, you basically cannot make any decisive decision. And that is where now, the last point is, can the superpowers decide that they don't want that civil war? Why am I saying that? Remember, none of these groups actually manufactures weapons.
Okay.
Where are they getting their weapons? They don't have. I don't think the Tigrayans have the capacity to buy weapons to fight the Ethiopian army. I don't think even the Ethiopian government itself can afford to buy if they are to go to the open market. So at the end of the day, there is external interference within this civil strife. And until that point, where those who are interested in making sure that there is no peace in Ethiopia see sense in having peace there, then that is another point of departure in the whole discourse.
Okay, Kasim, thanks for your political angle. So, Professor Midamba, as we finalize on this, the US and Europe seem to have isolated the country right now, and the Prime Minister is standing on his own. What role can international players hold? Because looking historically, correct me if I'm wrong, Prof, the Ethiopian region not being colonized had an influence in the Black American movement in the 60s and 70s. There are some Americans who even wanted to register to fight for independence in Ethiopia. So in terms of international players, what influence can they hold in bringing these leaders to a roundtable discussion?
Thank you. Let me just correct something that Honorable Tangasa just said. Ethiopia is one of the only country in Africa that has been able to manufacture their small arms. They're also very resilient in terms of ability to be able to adapt very quickly. They buy Chinese tank and immediately they create their own, such that what we talk about, it is a gun culture. It is an unfortunate thing that is evolving right in front of us because Ethiopia has a great deal of promise right now. Its rate of growth was roughly about 6% economic growth, and a great deal of potential for manufacturing and marketing goods for Kenya products was real when you look at it in the future. What is the role of international community? First of all, let's talk about AU, African role. At this point, the African standby force ought to be able to set a ring around Addis Ababa as a capital, really, of Africa, with the immense implication for the rest of our proceeding going forward. Africa need to be actively engaged with these ethnic groups within Ethiopia as their leaders are springing up all over to find out through back channel how to be able to bring them back together. The question that Professor Kagwanja and I talked quietly during the break is, can Prime Minister Abiy be able to lead Ethiopia from now? And that is a very difficult and delicate question because in the eye of Ethiopians, he has lost it. In the eye of the world, he has lost it. He's young, he's bright, he has extensive experience in military intelligence. He understands exactly what needs to be done, but hence he did right the opposite against the art of war. Now he's fighting his own people, he's destroying his own people, he's destroying his own army, and the army are assembling as a group or ethnic groups that are ready to fight and kill each other. And therefore, America need to be very consistent with their aid and support instead of threatening to withdraw or block their aid. Because what you are going to do is leave an opening for the Russian tank to be imported in that country by thousands. Or Chinese, large number of Chinese military marching through Addis Ababa will be the worst thing for Africa and in the future.
Okay, Prof, allow me to let you finalize right there. So Kagwanja, in terms of your final comments, I mean, Addis Ababa, it's a city that hosts the African Union headquarters. United Nations Economic Commission for Africa is also hosted in the capital. From where you sit, is it soon crumbling? According to the reports, TPLF and ORA are closing in into the capital. Well, what say you?
I think the African Union now need to have a backbone and stand against the regime in Addis Ababa. because it could have done better. The African Union, IGAD, East African Community, and others need to come and call for talks in Addis Ababa. And not necessarily talks between Abiy and the Tigrayans, but broader talks by Ethiopians in order to hammer a new social contract about their country, about their future. I think that's where the crux is.
All right. Well noted, Prof. Kagwanja. Thanks for keeping it brief. Kasim, just 1 minute, your final take on all this. In terms of even Kenya, President Kenyatta came out and mentioned he's tried everything in his capacity to no avail in terms of dialogue. Your final comments, Kasim.
Well, of course, we need to stand together with our president, because the security in Ethiopia is security in Kenya, as I had initially said. But beyond that, what else can we do? I am still of the opinion that the external forces involved in this, and until that time that the external forces decide that they need peace, if they are probably asking for a regime change, then can it be done peacefully instead of people losing their lives and losing their livelihood? But my final comment is those bestowed, given power by the people, by God, please use it reasonably, use it equitably for the benefit of all. Otherwise, we might not be seeing the last of such conflicts in our African continent.
Of course, many thanks, Kasim Tandaza, for your comments right there. And of course, each and every country has a role to play, bearing in mind Ethiopia might just be suspended from the United States Tariff-Free African Growth and Opportunity Act, better known as AGOA. Other countries on the red zone are Guinea and Mali, which might lose access to that scheme, which provides free tariff access to the US market, quite important for African manufacturers. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I hope these discussions have been fruitful for our viewers back at home as we got to interrogate the latest political intrigues in the country